it.
First set.
So again, it was Bencic winning the toss and electing to receive. So we'll see the serve of Venus Williams first. This 2 out of 3 set match is for a spot in the round of 16. You can see right away in that first point, at least, one of the strong parts of Bencic is her anticipation. She knew exactly where Venus was going to hit that shot.
They've played quite a bit, but that's certainly one of her strong suits, her anticipation, her movement, the way her feel for the game and her feel around moving around the court. And there's Venus's strong suit, that immense power of hers.
Venus here at the U.S. Open for her 17th time, most of any player in the draw.
And those types of serves are what Venus is going to need. And there she didn't go huge. That was only 94, but it was out wide. When she gets herself into trouble when she starts missing those first serves, and Bencic will be waiting for those opportunities to go for the second serve.
Venus has not had a quick match in this tournament so far. There's her coach, hitting partner, David Witt. He's really been on a roller coaster this week.
Here at the U.S. Open for the last several years. Oh, and terrific serving from Venus to start things off.
Listen to the crowd, too. They are solidly behind Venus. One of the great champions in tennis history. Venus Williams, you see her continuing to make a difference in this sport long after her playing days are over. Venus doesn't get as much credit, I think, as she deserves for a lot of the off-court things she's been responsible for.
Absolutely, and those within the game know how important she's been. Since Billie Jean King, she may be one of the most important figures within the women's game for what she's contributed, which we'll touch on a little more in a bit.
15
And much of that was really the prize money fight for women's tennis at Wimbledon, to make sure that all the players, that the women had that equal prize money at the slams. It was Venus who went in there and made the very compelling argument for the women.
13.
Nice.
And beautifully done there. And for Venus, in her first couple of matches where she's been a little streaky in terms of the unforced errors, and she said as she was coming off the court when she beat Falcone in 3, she said, I've got to cut down on the unforced errors and find that balance with being aggressive.
Big serve from Bencic to move ahead 40-15. Bencic, pretty complete package already at 18 years of age. She's ranked 12 in the world right now. And back-to-back aces was called out. So a late call out by the linesman. No one heard it. And so Bencic is going to go to the chase review. She had just served one ace. And the chase review. Wow, good call by that linesman. It'll be a second serve.
Very far out. It's amazing.
Eagle eye.
Yeah,
Good
he's
job.
not smiling, but you know he's feeling pretty good about himself right now.
Bet. Second serve.
Game.
And Bencic holds regardless. So we've split our first 2 games. Bencic 12 in the world. She's having the 12th best season on tour too. You can discover who's having the best 2015 by looking at the Road to Singapore standings, which the top 8 players will advance to the WTA finals. Venus ranked 23, number 22 on that Road to Singapore, so about the same.
15.
And I really believe that the roof, the addition of the roof, even though it's not complete, but it's much more still in here. There's not as much wind. Is a big boost for someone like a Venus Williams who likes it still, whose serve can go off a bit. This gives her an advantage in that area.
It's a bit breezy around the grounds today, but you can see the wind blowing in Bencic's hair a little bit. She was startled by something dropping.
Those are the backhands that Venus Williams lives for, and usually her bread and butter. But speaking of backhands, Bencic, you saw the way she leaned into that return to serve on the second serve. Her backhand, Bencic, is such a beautiful shot. She moves into it so well and handles the short ball extremely well off that side. And it would be hard. It will be hard for us not to make the Martina Hingis comparisons. Watching her play.
Martina Hingis hasn't gone anywhere either. She's still playing the #1 seed in doubles. Let's look at Bencic's father, who also obviously is listed as the coach. There's Martina.
Who's there?
And actually, when in the WTA events, you can have your coach come out on the court. Martina doesn't come on the court. She sends Melinda's dad out there, and they have some very colorful exchanges. It's interesting to see that father-daughter dynamic. Those of us with daughters can well relate to when he goes out on the court.
And there, Venus going to the forehand with that second serve, and the forehand of Bencic has improved dramatically. And you talk about improvement from 12 months ago. Really, it is the forehand's gotten much better. Not much room for improvement on the backhand. It's so good.
Late call. Venus looking at the chair, does not go to the chase review. Venus very selectively uses those challenges.
But along those lines, the forehand's still the weaker side.
40-13.
And there, the one shot that causes Venus problems can get her in trouble. That second serve with the double faults or landing short.
Game Williams.
Venus holds on serve through 3 games. Venus looking for a quick match today. She has not had that luxury at this year's U.S. Open, but of everyone she's played, you'd think this would be the least likely quick match available.
Time.
Early goings here in Arthur Ashe Stadium, the kickoff of a holiday weekend here in the United States. Good crowd on hand for it being about 2 o'clock Eastern time. Belinda Bencic serving 1-2 down here in the first set as we just get started with the round of 16 on the line for these two. What a week Bencic had in Toronto this summer. 3 top 10 victories, wins over Wozniacki, Ivanovic, and of course Serena. Then took out Halep as well in the final. When she left Toronto, her yearly record against top 10 players was 6-1.
13.
And that's utter insanity when you think about it. 6-1 against top 10 players, but it goes to her maturity and her belief that she belongs.
She was the #1 junior in the world just 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And now threatening the top 10.
I think you do look at the areas where a player a young player in a 12-month span, a 6-month span, where do they make improvements in their physical game? And I think we look at the serve and we look at the forehand of Bencic. They're not great yet, but they've improved. They've improved dramatically and serve as a complement to her other many wonderful strengths. The backhand, the mind, the tennis mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bencic, a couple of aces. She's only lost 1 point on her serve so far. A reminder to go to usopen.org where you can see who all is playing right now. Full day of action underway. Sorry, Elise, what were you saying?
No. I was just thinking what an advantage from a young age to have had Melanie Molitor and Martina Hingis kind of barking in your ear. Good barking, just instilling all of that knowledge.
Bencic was last year's newcomer of the year.
When you're an opponent and you're on the court with both Venus and Serena, there is an immensity to their power that can be stunning when you start off a match. And as the matches wear on, players often get more accustomed to it. But it is at the beginning of a match, it can be just a little shocking.
This is about as sharp as I've seen Venus in her first 3 matches. And she basically had no choice. Love hold for Venus. It's been a server set so far.
15 love.
Turner's had a tough time so far in this set.
And that again, just overpowering from Venus there. One thing she's always been able to do, she blankets that baseline, Venus Williams, and just has such reach. Going sideline to sideline. That's just so good from Venus, looking for that second serve. And look how she is just standing in, waiting. Good return, and then follows it in with a very pure volley there. Very comfortable at the net. Always feel that when Venus is coming in, good things usually happen.
First service.
It's the first time she's threatened Bencic's serve here. And now a break point for Venus.
30-14.
Bencic just survives.
Yes.
And I love the little wry smile from Venus after the faux apology from Bencic. No tennis player is ever sorry when they clip the top of the tape and get that point, but you apologize anyway, and may turn out to be a very important point.
Advantage Bencic.
Venus has been impressive to me just because she's survived those 2 long matches and seems to be pretty good physically, managing the symptoms of that Sjogren syndrome. She hasn't had a real physical letdown. If you watch Venus in between points, she doesn't waste any energy. She doesn't do any fist pumping or even any excess walking.
Then she's not messing around, and she doesn't waste points in the sense of if that second serve sits up for her, she is going after it, she's going to send a message, and she's going to try to punish it. In time, that beautifully gave herself a perfect margin of error over the net and sending a signal to Bencic. And one of the telling things in this match may be rallies like the one we just saw, the forehand-to-forehand exchange, the weaker side of both players. Who comes out on top? There it was Venus giving herself another break point.
Got it. She didn't mean to cut it that close, but that's what I like about Bencic. She is not one to to give up. Doesn't get discouraged to the point of being able to lose focus.
No, and one of the things you see about her also is the adjustment she makes. Venus was going after those second serves, and she put a little more on that last one, even facing a break point.
Tina Hingis and Sonia Mirza, the #1 women's doubles seed, so they've won their first match already. It's been a real struggle in this game for Bencic. She's just hanging on. A nail-biting time for Martina Hingis.
Venus, of course, threatening here with the second. Bencic has really picked up the pace with these second serves. Not her choice to have to hit the seconds, but doing a much better job.
Advantage Bencic.
And what Bencic did well there, pretty good first serve, but held her ground on a nice return and just redirected that forehand down the line.
There's a lot of noises in this stadium you have to deal with. You don't deal with anywhere else.
Welcome to the U.S. Open.
All these luxury suites surrounding the stadium. And Bencic holds serve. Boy, that was close. She can breathe a little easier now, but 3-all.
And you go back to that net cord, that clip of the net, and turned out to be important. And Venus, who so easily could have been up 4-2, up that break at 3-all. And in importance, that game may prove to have been more important for Venus. Having played those tough physical matches. And you talked about her managing her Sjogren's disease. It's an energy sapping autoimmune disease, and it was in 2011 she announced that she had the Sjogren's and did have to pull out of this U.S. Open, but instead of retiring, said, I'm going to figure this out. Learn how to manage it.
Right.
I mean, at that time, when they were trying to figure it out, she was sleeping all the time. It couldn't figure out what was wrong.
She's changed everything. She's changed her diet. She's changed her exercise, her sleeping.
Game Williams.
Yeah, Venus has not given any looks to Bencic on her serve. It's been one-way traffic on Venus's serve, but overall we're on serve 3-4 here. First set. Venus again looking for a break. She had 3 break points earlier.
Le Petit.
Now there's the first outburst.
Yep, the frustration, and you see how she tries to just stand there and hold her ground with that forehand, that return. It's a bit of a barrage of power coming at her off that return. And that's very good from Venus Williams. Wonderful depth, and then stepping around with that forehand inside out.
I like the way this is going for Venus.
Le 14.
3 more chances to break.
Game Williams.
And there's the break. In the nick of time, as now Venus
Williams leads 5 games
will
to 3
serve for the
first.
opening set. Wow. What a turnaround.
Yeah, it happened very quickly. You saw the emotion from Bencic and maybe a little leftover from her match with Misaki Doi, where she really did have a bit of a meltdown during that match over a line call, feeling that pressure.
Le
Bencic is not the kind of player. A lot of the younger players, they get broken and they kind of go away. She's going to be right back challenging Venus here. I mean, Bencic is 12 in the world. Don't forget that. She's ranked higher than Venus.
First service.
She's the favorite.
Yeah, I mean,
Sounds crazy, but that's how the tide has turned in the last several weeks. Well, at the moment,
15 all.
Bencic being overpowered by Venus Williams. Just going to be interesting to see the adjustments, if Venus can stay at this level, and what adjustments Bencic can make.
wow. I don't know, it's knocked her down.
30 15.
It's 115-mile-an-hour serve.
She decided, I want to save my face. It's a pretty one. Gotta think of the future too.
14 15.
Venus turning it on. Set points for Venus Williams.
Those opportunities for Bencic have been few and far between to take control of a point. It saves that first set point.
Wow. Fastest serve of the set, 118, and it gives Venus
By
the
6
opening
games to
set.
2.
You can't be cured from them unless you're a machine. So it's normal to have nerves, and it's just about how you deal with it, how you conquer that moment, and see it as burden, or just see it as something that you go through and get used to it. Defeat is only when you accept it. It's not when you actually lose. I always try to do things on my own terms.
Second set, Bencic to serve.
Belinda Bencic broke it just that one time in the first set, but that was all Venus needed. Now Venus taking her time getting up to return here. So I've seen Venus
Love to
play her previous 2 matches at least, and there's a different demeanor about her today. She seems so much more focused. Not that she wasn't focused in the other 2, but there's just a different level of intensity today from Venus that I didn't see in her first 2 matches.
Well, she certainly has come out with a purpose, and it looks like in her mind she's very comfortable against Bencic. She's beaten her 3 times, and no doubt in her mind that she can take it to her. And that's exactly what happened that opening set.
Bencic is frustrated right now. She cannot find any sort of pattern of play to impose onto Venus. Venus is not giving her any errors. Just the 6 unforced errors that entire first set.
Fifteen 14.
Well, that's well done, but still she had to rely on that second serve, but put a little more on it. But what we've seen from Bencic over the last couple months is that she truly is a problem solver out on the court. She is a cerebral tennis player. So can she solve this riddle of Venus? She may need some help from Venus, and in Bencic's mind, she must be thinking that Venus can't keep up this level. That if you're Bencic, you've got to be thinking when her level drops, that's when I can pounce. That's when I can go after her, but got to stay with her.
Advantage Bencic.
This would be quite an escape for Bencic here in this opening game. Venus looking for that towel. She
Yes.
has been wanting that towel brought to her after just about every point. She wants it quickly. Hasn't been getting it as fast as she wants. Boy, he's got to be happy. This has been a very good effort so far from Venus. It's in. Wow, some indecisive moments and confusion there in that point from Venus.
Yes, the mishit, and you needed that recognition. The second she realized that thing was staying in, she needed to commit one way or the other, probably coming in, and then she knew it. She knew she needed to be in and then got caught.
Game, Bencic.
Well, Bencic escapes as Venus had 3 break points
First game,
in that
second
game.
set.
They were all in a row, too.
No doubt Venus let her get away with one there with that hold of serve, but as we saw in the first set when Venus had those 3 break points in that 3-2 game and didn't get the break, you thought maybe that was going to affect her, but it didn't. And then in her mind, she knows she can break her, so is not really going to have any negative thoughts about letting that get away.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it was more of a moral victory than a defeat for Venus. She's had 7 break points on the Bencic serve. Bencic has not seen a break point against Venus today.
$15.
When it comes to this match, Bencic has said all the right things, that she's prepared, she knows what to do. She knew that her little meltdown in her previous match was the wrong thing and the wrong behavior. Really liked the way Venus handled that one. It was trickier than it looked. The ball was dropping, but she got up. Look at that serve. Not a lot on it, but look how wide it is. Pulls her off the court. But this, it's dropping, and Venus got up and handled it beautifully. Didn't go for too much.
And the sun is back out now. Venus is serving on the tough end when the sun is out. She's looking right up into it.
So what, she says. It's a perfect 1-2 punch.
40-15.
It's interesting on this side, though, when she's serving into the deuce court, because she's basically straddling the shadow and the sun.
But you see where Bencic plays pretty far back, and she leaves that wide one open, and Venus, for the most part, taking advantage of that.
Game.
So another easy service hold for Venus. Venus
One
continuing
game,
to
second set.
cruise through her service games in this match. She's only lost 7 points on her serve.
And the forehand of Bencic so far been a bit of a trouble spot. You can see her off balance attempting that last return.
At times it has felt like Bencic has attempted too much of a shot. Instead of making the simple shot, which is what she's known for, she's going for a bit much.
But that's the pressure Venus is putting on her. I mean, she's being overwhelmed by the power. You feel that you have to go for more. I mean, what she needs to make sure is that those types of shots right here, the mid-court shot, Venus gives her something mid-court. You cannot make a mistake on that. You've got to handle it and take care of business, which she did there very well.
Serve from Bencic, she's protecting it much better. She's adding a lot of youngest ever titles next to her names. She's breaking a lot of records in this modern era for youth. The success she's having at 18, and she beat Serena. Youngest player to beat Serena since 2004.
Game Bencic.
And staying ahead of Venus so far. That was a much better service game than her first.
2 games to 1, second set. William.
Venus Williams getting ready to serve 1-2.
Thank you, players awaiting.
Fans to come in and get settled down. The crowd's starting to build. There's a lot of movement off to the side of Venus, just in her line of sight when she tosses up the ball to serve. Nice volley.
That was spectacular from Venus, and don't think Bencic could have done anything more, but Venus, that great reach and very firm with that racket head on that backhand volley, which wasn't an easy one.
Venus is 10 of 13 when she comes into the net today. Which really has not given Bencic any looks, any hope to overcome her. Bencic has been playing from behind the whole match.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Bencic, you're just praying for a little hiccup here.
And it was Bencic who started giving Venus the honor of serving.
Yes, she did. And in thinking that Venus may have been a little tight at the beginning, may have not been in the groove on that first serve, hoping for that break, but also Bencic knowing that the serve is certainly not her strong suit necessarily.
Yeah.
First real wild serve we've seen from Venus, who amazingly is serving at 76% first serves.
Good shot from Bencic. And this is about as close as Bencic has been able to get. She hasn't gotten to break point yet.
Yep, and really nice recognition there. Saw Venus going to the slice and knew she'd have a chance to go after her shot, and she did off the backhand.
First break point of the match coming for Bencic.
2 points in a row. Bencic has gotten a look at a second serve, and that just makes an enormous difference.
Bencic breaks. It had worked out so nicely for Venus coming into the net, but not this time. Bencic had the answer.
We said that Bencic needed a hiccup, and she got it from Venus, missing 3 first serves in that game, the last 3 points.
Reminder to go to usopen.org. You can look at the stats of this match, which are very impressive for each player, as well as order merchandise, see what else is going on around the grounds here at the US Open, and some online specific programs there as well. 3-1 Bencic leading. Remember, Bencic faced triple break point in her opening service game and got through it. Double fault number 2 from Bencic.
And it all went so perfectly for a set end, 3 games for Venus, and now she's going to have to figure her way through this little road bump.
Love the disguise on that drop shot.
30.
You see Bencic behind the baseline, and Venus recognizing she's way back and executes perfectly.
Good serve at 30 all. That's clutch. Well, Bencic is hanging in there. Linda Bencic up a set, or excuse me, down a set, but up a break here in the second. 2 games away from forcing a final. Venus Williams with some work cut out for her against the 18-year-old. Venus broken in her last service game. Finds herself down 1-4. Just for the right to move to the round of 16.
And for Venus, we saw her last service game. It was her first hiccup. It was the first time she missed some first serves, and that's where Bencic started to get some looks, and that's why she got the break.
15.
Talked about her added level of sharpness today. That's diminished a little bit. And with Venus, there's always that question, how is she physically? Is she feeling, because it comes upon her suddenly sometimes. How's she feeling out there?
What we see with Venus is a pattern where she does go off, and you see her mother Aura saying, come on, let's find that first set level, and a little shake of the head. But Venus does go in and out a little more, and this time she just gave that slight opening, and Bencic is too good to let it pass.
Venus with a game point. You don't feel like this is an insurmountable lead by any stretch of the imagination, as Bencic at times seemed to just be hanging on in her service games. That was a really nice look of affirmation from Hingis when she did break.
Let her service. Game Williams.
And Venus holds. So again, Bencic only up 1 break a serve. And Venus has been in most of the Bencic service games.
And the key for Bencic is first serves. I mean, the one thing that she doesn't want Venus to have those looks at the second serve. She doesn't want Venus to start pounding on second serves like we saw her capability of in that opening set.
Yeah, she struggled on her second serve in this set.
And you look at Venus there, she's pretty menacing. When she stands in, it's hard to hit it by or through.
15 love.
But at the moment, the longer some of these rallies go, when Bencic gets herself into these rallies, she's hanging more with Venus, and we're seeing more of those unforced errors come off of Venus's racket.
It's excellent defense by Bencic in that point. Barely saw that ball.
And that's where Venus's forehand is its best.
15 all.
When she gets the opportunity to hit the inside out one. Usually going over a lower portion of the net.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to say out wide she's a little more vulnerable, but certainly not there on that one.
15 2.
Bencic again facing break points. She faced 3 break points in her opening service game of this set and got through it.
And that's the forehand that I was referring to. That's where you see more errors from Venus's racket as opposed to the one a couple points ago inside out in David Witt. He's been here many times, just usually very calm.
Thank you.
That's all for Venus Williams. That's support for all she's given this game.
Well, it's called good. Bencic is saying it's out.
Miss Bencic is touching the column red.
If this is good, Bencic has been broken.
She knew it. She knew it.
Venus is back on serve. 3-4 here in the second. Bencic has probably grown accustomed this summer to being the Cinderella story, the darling of the crowd everywhere she's played. This is new for her to be in hostile territory.
15 love.
I love that serve right into the body. A couple times we've seen Bencic not be able to get out of the way. Just Venus has mixed that up very well. I mean, it's ironic when you think about it. Venus's first U.S. Open '97. Who did she play in the finals? Martina Hingis in the box for Bencic.
Yep.
Which Hingis won?
Well, and Bencic was born in 1997. Oh boy. Venus painting that baseline.
It felt like she was living dangerously here. look at the depth, and again, such depth. It's so good. And then delicate with the backhand volley. Spot on.
So 4 games apiece.
Pretty much virtuoso from Venus. Last couple games, first set. Can she keep this up? I mean, playing at such a high level. I mean, and that's the level she needs to play to beat a Belinda Bencic, who is so tough.
Venus has won the last 2 games. Loving that baseline.
Yeah, made no mistake with that forehand. The previous forehand she pulled up, she knew it, made the correction on the next point. You're Bencic, you cannot miss that forehand. Venus has given you 2 gifts. She gave you 2 forehand errors of her own. She's playing too well for you to miss that one.
Venus gives one right back. A lot of nervous faces over there. Game point Bencic to break a 2-game streak by Venus. Nervous game here.
Yeah, and maybe you give so much credit to Venus. Her high level throughout this match has put pressure on Bencic and has gotten to her. Those are not customary mistakes from her.
Out.
The shot I loved from Venus was that backhand. She was pulled off court. She threw it up in the air, just got her back into the point, and then gets that unforced error from Bencic.
Venus has broken. Venus Williams will serve for a spot in the round of 16.
Second set and by 1 set up.
Venus Williams got down a break in this set. She was down 4-1. And she's come back to win the last 4 games and sits here in position of being able to close this match out. Venus Williams now will serve for a spot in the 4th round.
No doubt that Bencic is out of sorts, and you give credit to Venus, because from the get-go, she just took it to her.
Out again.
And Venus is thrilled with these, just being handed these points, and Bencic should recognize Venus has had trouble closing matches with her first 2 matches, but doesn't seem to be in the frame of mind.
And Venus powers her way to match point.
14.
And they're just a glimpse of what we've seen from Bencic all summer. That backhand making it look easy, moves through it so beautifully.
A great effort from Venus Williams, as she seemed to have a level of determination the moment she walked out on this court that perhaps was lacking in her first 2 matches. She would not be denied this match against